The guys said they saw me stand up and turn and run to them when the round hit me from behind. It caught me right in front of the ear and traveled through. So they saw me fall in front of them and thought I was dead. When I finally came to, I was laying on my back and I was seeing laser beams travel over me, which at first I couldn't quite put my thoughts together. I was, man, what happened? What's wrong? Like, where am I? And then it dawned on me, I'm like, holy shit, you're in this gunfight, and that's tracer fire. I stayed awake, stay alive. That was it. That was my primary focus, and I trusted my teammates to be able to win that fight. I thought that I was gonna die. I did think about that. I thought I was gonna bleed out and that I would never see my wife and kids again. Like every breath felt like I got a 10,000-pound weight on my chest. Like just to take a breath was incredibly difficult. I remember trying to move my right hand at one point and I couldn't even feel my right hand. I was really cold. It was getting hard to think. So I was like, you're dying. Like you're going through all the physiological components of dying. They got me into the outer room. They got to remove all your gear. I remember them cutting all that off, and then they put me into the operating room, and lots of activity, barking out orders, bright lights, and just thinking to myself, like, you made it. Like, you can die and they'll save you. And I remember that was kind of my final thought as I drifted off. Yeah, I am Jason Redman. I am a retired Navy SEAL. I am an author, speaker, coach, and entrepreneur. The military thing was something that came from a very young age. I always had an affinity towards what I call the protector community, the fire, military, law enforcement, all those things. When I was really young, I wanted to be a firefighter, I would say. I want to be a fireman because firemen are brave of heart. I would tell people that. And someone gave me this fire helmet that had a light on it and a siren, and I would wear that around the house and drive everyone insane. My family had all served. So I grew up with a lot of stories about the military. My dad's father was a B-24, a bomber pilot over the European theater during the war. And those guys' life expectancy was not very good. I mean, he flew all 25 missions, highly decorated. When I was a young kid in the late 80s, you couldn't find anything about the SEAL teams. Obviously, the internet hadn't been invented yet. God, does that make me sound old? So really, it was just trying to find information. It was very hard to find anything. But my dad said, hey, you should check these guys out. They're called Navy SEALs. They're considered some of the best of the best. Their training is the hardest in the world. And I don't know why, that just piqued my interest. So, I mean, the toughest part of SEAL training is Hell Week. Hell Week is considered by many to be the hardest block of training in the U.S. military. We definitely have the highest attrition rate of any block of training, specifically in that week. On average, you'll lose almost 80% of the class will quit during Hell Week. And it is the pruning, if you will. It is probably the biggest training device used in SEAL training to weed out the people who don't have the mental fortitude to endure massive discomfort and pain to want to be there, because they apply it in a myriad of really hard ways. Number one, physically demanding activity for Hell Week lasts a week, almost a week. I mean, it's about 5.5 days, so a work week, if you will. During that week, you get almost no sleep. You'll average about 3 hours of sleep. So probably 72 hours in, you're starting to hallucinate. I remember multiple times I was hallucinating during Hell Week. You're 90% of the time you are wet, cold, and coated in sand. So what's happening is you're chafing holes. A lot of guys chafe holes on the inside of their legs and their groin area and your armpits, on your neck, on top of your head. Not uncommon for guys, toenails and fingernails to fall off or pop off from just being wet. You're shivering all the time. So what starts to happen, your muscles are locking up from shivering. So now you're like locking up in pain from shivering. You literally become primal. It almost becomes like, I just have to survive this. But you also have to think. You still have to exist as a team. You have to get through the evolutions, because it's not like mindless activity. Everything is, you're accomplishing different things, from problem solving to navigating the obstacle course to doing a time run to doing swim, whatever it is. You're doing all these different things, but now you're doing it with the highest levels of stress, pressure, pain, and lack of sleep. I think for a lot of guys that go out to training, for whatever reason, they're not prepared for the level of shock that training does to you. I mean, it is designed to be mentally, physically, and emotionally overwhelming. I mean, it's purposely designed to be that way. It's purposely designed to be unfair. And a lot of guys just cannot wrap their head around that. And they're really good. They tee it up slowly before day one of training starts. So in the in-doc phase for like a month, you're kind of learning what training is, and they kind of act like it's hard, and it is hard. But not like when day one hits, it's like they hit you with a sledgehammer. And man, there's a mass exodus of people that quit within the first couple of days, just right out the gates. And I think those are the people that haven't been able to wrap their heads around, like, this is going to be really hard. And so for me, that was no shock. I was like, okay, this is what we expected, so let's go. Hell Week was amazing. I mean, to know that I had finished it. I mean, Hell Week is the biggest crucible of SEAL training. There's still some other ones, and Hell Week is what bonds every SEAL. Fast forward to the end of training. I mean, training from Hell Week, you still have 4 months of training before you graduate. Hell Week's actually in the beginning. When you graduate, and then the other thing with that is when you graduate, that doesn't mean you're a SEAL. That just means you've made it through the first phase. Basic underwater demolition SEAL training is kind of like high school, and then you have to go to college, and then they assign you to a platoon, and almost, if you look at it from like a medical thing, you got to do residency before you're actually officially a doctor or a practicing doctor. That pipeline is kind of similar to us. So you get assigned to a team after you've gone through some advanced training or college, and then you have to prove yourself, kind of like a residency phase, if you will. Back in the day, it was a huge rite of passage. The entire team would line up. The commanding officer would have all the new guys who were getting their tridents. And back then, we used to wear camouflage uniforms, and we had black tridents that the older, the other guys wore in their uniforms. But on your dress uniform, it was a gold trident. And they would present you with that, but then they would tack in your black trident, and they would punch it into your chest. And man, it was an amazing rite of passage. I mean, yes, there's a picture in my book where my chest is all bruised from having 200 teammates, punch my trident in. But it's such an amazing rite of passage, and you just feel amazing. Like, I'm a part of this community, this warrior community, and I've done all these things to reach this level. So probably 1 week before we were going home, we got tasked to go after a high-level Al-Qaeda leader guy. He was the #1 leader for the Anbar province of Iraq. Launched on that mission, took down the initial target. Nobody was there. We thought it was going to be a quiet night. Basically, we found all kinds of weapons and IED-making components. And we were going to blow that in place. It was about 3 a.m. in the morning at this point, and we thought, okay, that'll be it. We blow this, we blow up the IED and explosives, and then we're out of here, extract, and that'll be it for tonight. And while we were waiting on that, we saw a bunch of activity on another house about 150 yards away. Saw some individuals run out of that house, run into some vegetation across the street. And my boss came up to me and said, hey, we just saw this. We had seen it before. We had seen individuals run and hide in vegetation and things like that. They not realizing, we have snipers with eyes and things like this who are watching. And he said, let's wrap these guys up. Typically good people don't run out of buildings in the middle of the night and hide unless they have a reason to. So yeah, I took my team. We navigated through this vegetation, coming up from the south to the north where these guys were hiding. And we did not know it, but they were the last part of a ambush line that they had put into that vegetation. So they had fighting positions built in there. They had multiple machine guns and AK-47s. And we came up behind them. But what ended up happening is we got separated in the vegetation. That's a really dangerous situation to be. We call it a blue on blue. Where friendly forces are both shooting at each other with the enemy in the middle. So we made the call like, hey, push out of the vegetation. We'll push out of the vegetation on this side, and then we'll get to the north and we'll link back up. We were not aware. We were asking. At this point, we had a AC-130 gunship. It's kind of an aircraft that has weapons and high-level targeting equipment to be able to see things happening on the ground even at night. And I was talking to them and I said, hey, can you see anything? Are you seeing any movement? No, we're not seeing anything. Are you seeing any weapons? No, we're not seeing any weapons. So we just said, okay, we're going to push up to the north. We're going to link back up, and then we'll go into the vegetation and wrap these guys up. Oh. Yeah, we walked right into their ambush. So when we went up to the north, we walked right into what we call the kill zone. So all the weapons are pointed this way, and literally they opened up on us. So my medic was initially hit, took a round right below the knee, severed both bones, which dropped him into the ground. One of our other guys ran forward and started to drag him back, and he was shot 3 times up the body. Still a strong and big enough guy to drag himself and the medic back to, it was like a tractor tire behind us. DJ was with us. He bounded back, and the only points of cover, meaning something that'll stop bullets, were the tractor tire, which is kind of like this large John Deere style, and like one tree. Then DJ fell back behind the tree. The rest of the guys fell behind the tire. And I was still out front at this point. I was laying down fire when I initially got shot. So I got shot across the body armor and took the round in the arm. I thought my arm got shot off in the moment. I'd never been shot before, and it was with a PKM machine gun. So it's a big belt-fed weapon that shoots pretty big bullets, 7.62 by 54. And when it hit me in the arm, I lost all feeling. And it actually felt like, I've often described it like if you bang your funny bone, it's kind of like that, only by amplify that by 1,000. It literally felt like a lightning bolt struck me in the arm and traveled up my arm and spiked me in the back of the head. And then I had no feeling. So I think my arm kind of caught on my gear, because now it's nighttime. It's like 3:30 in the morning. So when I reached over, I didn't feel my arm. And my initial thought was, holy shit, I just got my arm shot off. I tried to shoot again. I think I dropped down. And then I was taking a lot of fire. At this point, I took a round off my gun. I had my left night vision tube shot off. I was taking a lot of fire. So I decided I was going to try and move back to the tire. So the guys said they saw me stand up and turn and run to them when the round hit me from behind. It caught me right in front of the ear and traveled through. So they saw me fall in front of them and thought I was dead. We don't know how long, 5, 10 minutes I was unconscious. The total gunfight lasted probably 40 minutes. But they were engaging the enemy. I'm unconscious, and literally this firefight is happening directly above me. When I finally came to, I basically woke up, and what I remember was I was laying on my back, and I was seeing laser beams travel over me, which at first I couldn't quite put my thoughts together. You know, it was super cloudy. I mean, if you've ever been knocked out, you know, it kind of takes a little bit to get your brain working and figure out where you are and things to come back to place. So I was, you know, man, what happened? What's wrong? Like, where am I? You know, hearing the gunfire, seeing the laser beams. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, holy shit, you're in this gunfight, and that's tracer fire. So every 5th round of a machine gun has phosphorus in the gunpowder, so it looks like a laser beam through the air. That's how machine gunners sight their weapon. That's what, you know, people often see in movies and things like that. So I remember, like, that was my first thought, like, holy shit, like, literally that's right above me. Like, if you sit up, you're dead. And I'm like, man, you know, I quickly realized, like, man, I am out of the fight. I tried to get my tourniquet on. We had been trained. I knew I'd been shot in the arm. I remembered that. I think at some point I remember reaching up to my face and realizing, holy shit, like there's a giant hole in my face. Like I've been shot in the face. And I was like, I got to get a tourniquet on. Like, you know, because I still thought my arm had been shot off. Interesting. I used to carry my tourniquet either on the top, or I think I carry it on the bottom of my body armor. And I use these really thick rubber bands, which for a healthy, strong individual, no big deal. But when I tried to break them, I'd already lost so much blood. I was so weak, I couldn't get my tourniquet. I was like, holy shit, you know, I'm gonna bleed out because I can't even get my own tourniquet on. So there was a lull in fire, and I remember calling out, or I might have even gone on the radio, I'm not sure, but I called out to my team leader, and he said, Red, you're still alive? I was like, yes. How long to the medevac? Because I knew I couldn't last that long. So I was like, and reality is I should have realized, you know, hey man, we got to win the gunfight before we can bring in the medevac. But I trusted them to do that. And he said 5 minutes. So I think that was probably 15, 20 minutes, you know, period of time. I think when they realized that, they requested a fire mission. The gunship said, we're so close, we'll kill you guys. You guys are way too close. You are in extreme danger close situation, meaning if we bring in the rounds, they're going to kill you the same time we kill the enemy because of the fragmentation and blast radius. So they wanted us to move back somehow. And my team leader was like, there's no way, there's no place for us to go. You know, Red's pinned down out front, 10 yards. We can't run into this gunfire. So we asked again, probably 5 minutes later, they said no. The third time, probably 5 minutes later, he said, look, no one's gonna be left. He's like, we're gonna be out of ammo, and these guys are gonna bleed out and die before we can get out of here. So he's like, you have to bring in this fire mission. So at that point, they basically said, the responsibility's on you. You are accepting responsibility for the fact that we may kill you. And he had to give his, we call it a Joint Tactical Air Controller Specific Designator, JTAC, which basically means he is trained and qualified to call in rounds from an aircraft, but by them making him give his JTAC designator, if we had been killed, it basically relieved the aircraft from the responsibility. They had said, hey, we are going to kill you. Like, you have to accept this. So he called out to me and said, hey, incoming. And I remember laying there, and the machine gun was still, and hearing the rounds go off from the gun. The aircraft flies at a pretty high altitude. You can't see it in the dark. But you can hear the gun go off. 40 millimeter fires a round that's about this big and about this long, and it's explosive. has about a 60-meter blast radius. And I remember hearing it go off, boom, 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 boom. And like waiting, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 in front of us. And all this dirt and shit blew up over me. And the gun went cold. And I remember hearing the guy on the gun crying out in pain. Allah, Allah Akbar, he was, calling out to his God. I remember thinking, stand by. And next rounds came in, boom, 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 boom. At that point, my team leader ran forward and got me and dragged me back to the tire and got a tourniquet on my arm. So saved my life. The guys were also back there. They packed my face. We ended up calling in several more fire missions to take out the rest of the enemy. And then finally we called in the medevac. But that fire mission was the closest fire mission ever executed in the entire Iraq war. Like literally calling rounds directly on our position. I wouldn't be here. It's nothing heroic, nothing amazing. I'm not this incredible warrior. I mean, the only thing that happened for me that night is I stayed awake, stay alive. That was it. That was my primary focus, and I trusted my teammates to be able to win that fight, and they did. And I owe my life to my teammates. I owe my life to that gunship that was up overhead. And then shortly later, I would owe my life to all the incredible medical doctors and nurses who, saved my life in that operating room, an hour later. So the next thing I remember, I was in Germany. So I remember being in Balad in the ICU. There are parts of that I remember. And then the next thing I remember, I'm in Germany. And then I remember the flight home from Landstuhl to America. I was too weak to get out of bed. I mean, I was, the blood loss, I wasn't even strong enough to go to the bathroom on my own. I had to have nurses help me to use the bathroom. I had 8 blood transfusions over the 96-hour period from the time I was wounded to the time I got to Bethesda. So just, crushed my strength. And I'm by now, 4 days later, like I have a picture from only a few days after the hospital. My head is swollen out like this, like both eyes were bloodshot. I mean, you couldn't even see, just red. I looked like an alien. All the stitches are protruding out from the swelling. There's nothing left of my nose. I just have these orange tubes where what was left of my nose. I'm trached, I'm wired shut. They're feeding me through a stomach tube. I'm on the ventilator. When I was in the hospital, there were some people that came in to the room, and they were just a lot of pity, over what had happened. And yeah, and I think that happens a lot in this life. People feel sorry for you when bad things happen. And a military hospital in war is a pretty hard place to be. A lot of young kids that are blown apart. War wounds are really bad. Case in point. So anyways, they were, I think, overwhelmed. They were in my room. They were talking about what a shame and what a pity. How sad it was that all these kids were blown apart and we were never going to be the same. We would never recover. And then they left. And I overheard part of this conversation. They were speaking to themselves, and like the nurse was in the room or something, and they left, the nurse left. And I don't know, I just kind of remember laying in bed like, man, is that like me? Is that my future? And be thankful for the hard times, because if you're willing to navigate through them, they actually set you up for better success. That's what builds an overcome mindset. That's what builds resilience. If you've never ever been through anything hard, it's hard to turn on an overcome mindset when something bad happens to you. So anyways, that's how the sign came to be. It was a choice. I said, I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. So yeah, I wrote out that sign, and one shot. I didn't really give it a lot of thought. The original sign was written on a piece of like printer paper. That's what I was using to communicate. And then several days later, we transcribed it onto the. It was larger. It was probably the 11 by 17 was the actual real sign, which now hangs up at the Wounded Ward at Walter Reed. So I got an invitation to the White House to meet President Bush, and he signed it, and it now hangs there at the Wounded Ward at Walter Reed.
Wow.
Attention to all who enter here. If you're coming into this room with sorrow or to feel sorry for my wounds, go elsewhere. The wounds I received, I got in a job I love, doing it for people I love, supporting the freedom of a country that I deeply love. I am incredibly tough and will make a full recovery. What is full? That is the absolute utmost physically my body has the ability to recover. And I'll push that about 20% further through sheer mental tenacity. This room you're about to enter is a room of fun, optimism, and intense rapid regrowth. If you are not prepared for that, go elsewhere. And we signed it from the management. So
I'll be honest, in the beginning, I think I was just elated to still be alive. And there was just this relentless push to get better. So I'd say for the first year, although don't get me wrong, in the very beginning, it was very difficult to kind of come to grips with, man, I am severely disfigured. I mean, in the beginning, they were telling me they were going to amputate my arm. The amount of damage I had no function of my hand. So I had this nerve damage that they didn't know if it was going to get better. My elbow was totally destroyed. So the doctor's initial recommendation was to amputate above the elbow. The only reason I still have an arm is fate, serendipity, luck, God, whatever you want to call it. But the head orthopedic surgeon at Bethesda at that time was a former SEAL by the name of Dan Beleg. And Dan said, we're not taking his arm. I'm going to save his arm. And I think his entire team disagreed with him. But man, you guys, yeah, I'm not great, but I can do a lot, you know? I try and do more than the average person out there with what I've got. And I'm just thankful for that. And I wouldn't have an arm if it wasn't for Dan. But there were hard times. I won't lie. You know, I felt like to be facially disfigured is really hard. You go out in public, we all look at each other's faces. And even today, I get a lot of attraction. You know, people look at me, kids stare at me a lot because my face looks different. There's something wrong with it. They can tell there's scars, my eyes a little off. But go back to the beginning, I looked really rough. So that was hard, going out in public and dealing with that. I got frustrated after a period of time. What started happening is after my 8 weeks inpatient, I started doing outpatient. And they, you know, thanks to the SEAL teams and connections we have and a little bit of my own endeavors, I ended up connecting to some of the best surgeons in the world to rebuild my face and nose. But that required a lot of travel. I was, you know, fly, go have a surgery, you know, fly pre-op, come back, fly, surgery, 2 or 3 week recovery, come home, recover, and then repeat the process for multiple years. A lot of setbacks. Battlefield injuries are really dirty. So frequently infection sets in, and I had all kinds of infection problems with my face. So this nose they built me is actually the third nose. The first 2 failed, and they totally had to cut it out and start over. And that was really hard. At a certain period, like literally I just had a hole in my face, and you know, I used to go around with a piece of gauze. I often joke I look like Skeletor. And you know, that's no wonder Skeletor's so damn angry, right? You know, finally we gained traction, but no, man, there were a lot of dark, hard moments.
I won't lie. Now I often speak on it, the victor versus victim mindset. You know, I think when bad things happen to us, we have a tendency, and even I've done it. Man, I've had that victim mindset where, oh my God, this bad thing happened to me. You know, the world hates me, or these people hate me, or, you know, I'm never going to be able to overcome this. And yeah, I was just like, that's not going to be me.
Thank you so much for watching the amazing Jason Redman. His story has inspired so many people from around the world, and we wouldn't have been able to make this documentary if it wasn't for our sponsors supporting us, Huel. Huel has been absolutely amazing to us, and they have been fueling my performance for the last 2 years now. From the world record Atlas Stone to the new world record I'm working on at the moment, where I do the world's heaviest marathon, 100 kilos for 26.2 miles, or 220 pounds for 26.2 miles, followed up by an ultra marathon every day with 60 pounds on my back. Yes, I've been using Huel Black Edition to fuel that. It's got 26 vitamins and minerals, 35 grams of protein, slow release carbs, and it's on a ready to drink bottle. And it's absolutely amazing. So that's been fueling my performance. It's been fueling my busy days whilst I'm on these shoots. But don't just take my word for it. The hardest geezer who ran the entire length of Africa also uses this, and many more amazing athletes and busy people. So if you're trying to use it for performance or to help with your lifestyle and have a healthy lifestyle that's a busy lifestyle, Huel has got you covered. Go to the link down in the description where you can find out more and get exclusive offers like free shakers, free t-shirt, and much, much more. Thank you for watching. Have a blessed and productive day, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.